And I'm joined by the one and only Mr. Troy Redfern. Good to have you back, man. How you keeping?
How you doing, buddy?
Yeah, good,
You all
man.
good?
Yeah, good, man. Yourself?
Yeah, not so bad. Just been hard at it. Carrying on, carrying on.
Good, man. So, as you know, when we air this interview, we'll be airing it as part of the Takeover show in celebration of your new album, Wings of Salvation.
Yeah.
That's already getting great reviews, man. I was reading my Emerging Rock Band magazine on my lunch break earlier, and that's 10 out of 10 from them alone. So, you're already getting great reviews on this record, man.
Yeah, it's crazy. I've seen some of the reviews coming through, and yeah, there's been sort of I think it was a 5 out of 5 the other day for music and net and music news. Um, it's just yeah, it's just remind because when you put something out, you're never sure what people are going to make of it. You get so wrapped up in the tracks that you can't really listen to them anymore in the same
Mm.
way. It takes a while to sort of get some time to stand back from them and listen to them as if you've not been involved with it.
Yeah.
So it's cool that people are digging it. Because I put the Fire Cosmic out last year, and that got it went down well, that one, and that was a surprise because that was the first time, as you know, like because we sort of chatted a lot. It was the first time I'd put anything out, with a producer and bringing people in.
Yeah.
So then with this one, you know, I kind of didn't feel pressure to make this one better really because like we were speaking the other day, and it was such a short space of time. There was no sort of like external pressure. It was just like pressure to get it done and recorded. So that was the pressure, not like what people are going to think of this or is this better or any of that kind of stuff. Just we wanted to we gave ourselves a schedule, and yeah, it was tight. It was a tight schedule, but it was good. The pressure definitely sort of brought out the best, as opposed to, it sort of like crashing and burning, which he could have easily done.
I mean, you've been kind enough to send the album across, man, and I've managed to give it a good few spins before we speak tonight. And for me, like we were saying the other day, when we were chatting generally, like, for me, it does feel like a real progression on from the Fire Cosmic. It seems a similar sound, but it's got like its own backing almost. I think because you were talking about that 4 to 5 week period, um,
Yeah,
you recorded it. It always feels like, I don't know, like trying to capturing the lightning in the bottle a bit more on it. Like it feels to have
yeah,
that raw jagged tooth edge on the production. I think really suits your sound. I think
yeah,
it
yeah,
that other sort of dimension to it. It
yeah.
just sounds great, man.
Well, that again, like we were chatting about it, and the process was, I decided that Dave Marks was going to produce it, and
Mm.
we sort of chatted and we talked about it and how we wanted to do it and stuff. So the first thing was kind of like, normally I've got loads of ideas on the computer or on my phone or stuff like that to listen back to, and I decided to have go with a clean slate and just start
It
from
was a
scratch.
complete.
Yeah, there were no rough demos or anything. So the first thing was I just put about 40 verses and choruses, like song ideas, sketches with vocal melody, no lyrics. I got those all kind of like in a folder, and then Dave and I sort of like reviewed them and sort of like decided which ones of those we'd develop. And then in the pre-production stage, Dave got obviously works with Logic, and I've got Logic, so he put a Dropbox between our two Logic sort of like setups,
Yeah.
because he's based in Ireland, and so as I was sort of putting scratch beats down and putting these like demos together, he was seeing that instantly. He was updating his side, so then he could make arrangements, sort of talk to me about sort of parts of what he thought with about this section, that section. So that's why it was so quick, because they went from sort of like the roughest demos you could imagine, of just like a resonator and vocal with just like a one mic, to kind of arranged ideas like super fast in a couple of weeks. And like you said, that would generally, if you take a long time to record something, things get tweaked and sort of like moved around and sort of like shifted. So it's not anything like the kind of like the raw idea,
No.
where that was like the finished article was so close to the raw idea that, like you said, it was probably the best sort of like the inspiration was still there. It
Yeah.
hadn't filtered away over time. Yeah, and I was just surprised how fast we did it, and we got Dave obviously came over here to sort of like track and stuff. We went over to Dulcitone, and got Paul Stewarts coming, because Dave knows Paul, and most people know him from, like, would have heard of him from The Feeling, but we does sort of like more of a pop sort of like rock thing, you know. But
He's a
those
heavy
got
drummer though.
all of those guys who play, you know, that stuff like that he knows, they're great. You know, Darby's absolutely phenomenal. Paul's phenomenal. They're very different, you know. And I think at the time when we started the project, Darby was in the States, and we needed, like I told you, we had such a small window to get this stuff done. Darby couldn't make it, and Paul, um, Dave thought Paul was a good fit for this material because, you know, he could tell what vibe, you know,
Yeah.
obviously worked on the Fire Cosmic, so he knew kind of what we were going for. And there were sort of like stylistic ideas that I had about this album that I wanted to change up from the Fire Cosmic. You know, on that one I put a lot of layers of guitar in, and so it was a big wall. It was quite, you know, a claustrophobic mix in a way that's just full on.
Yeah.
And I said to Dave sort of early on, I wanted this one to kind of have less layers and more, you know, space behind the drums. So because if you're listening to it with your eyes closed, you've got a bit more dimensionality sort of back in the mix.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's why he wanted to go at the Dulcitone Studios, because, you know, it's a friend of his. It's, you know, it's a private studio, but it's a converted chapel,
Wow.
and
Acoustically,
it's
that must be amazing.
yeah. That's why he went there, because, you know, we multi-mic the room, so
Oh, right.
the reverb you're getting on the drum kit is from the sort of the back end of the sort of like the chapel, you know. And he knew that room really well because he's recorded there. And then we're just really careful, you know. You know, I think I've said in, you know, different sort of like things I've spoken about it, but we decided, you know, well, you know, Dave's idea was, I think, you know, let's do it kind of like in an old school way, because it was a kind of thing, you know, Fire Cosmic sort of did well, and this next one could have been like a super produced album like you hear some bands do, you know, where it's like everything's like hyper modern, real, you know, that kind of, you know, overproduced sort of sound, like a lot of rock albums are. And what we decided when we talked about it, it was a risk, but he wanted to do the exact opposite to that. So instead of sort of putting, like, you know, those sort of multi-layer guitars in and the kind of the drums with that kind of sound, with the samples to put on the drums to make them sound perfect, we wanted to do the opposite. And sort of, so every take had to be a full take, so there was no cutting in sections, you know, like,
Okay.
say the drums are recorded in 3 takes, say you did 3 of them or whatever, 3 or 4 takes, it had to be just one of those takes. So he wasn't going to take, say, a good drum roll from that one and pop it in, because you can do that easily. If you're clicked, you know, if everything's clicked up, you could just chop it around. But it was going to be none of that. No guitar chopping. So there had to be a rhythm guitar track that went through the whole track, and that was one take, you know. And then if you wanted to put extra guitars, say just for like to lift the chorus, maybe like a double track on the chorus or something like that, just to bring it wide. And vocals, the same, no auto tune, because these days literally everyone uses a little bit of auto. So there's something not so much auto tune, but maybe a tweak around on the pitch, you know. And it was like none of that. So for me as the performer, it was kind of like, okay, right. So the pressure was on in that way, because I knew that it wasn't going to be fixed. You know, when he was going to send it to Joe Webb to mix it, he wanted him to do like a really basic mix, literally like an old school kind of just mixing some levels,
All right. Okay.
not kind of like doing radical things, you know. So it was a risk. It genuinely was like, am I doing the right thing here? Because this approach is a gamble, because you don't know what it's going to come out like at
Oh,
the
of
end,
course.
you know. And so yeah, so you know, it was a risk, but I'm really pleased. You know, Joe's Webb's mix is wicked. I think it's great. And between, obviously those guys know each other, so there was a lot of group discussions between 3 of us about sort of like mixed, you know. And that took the mix took a little while, because it was kind of, you know, he was doing a little bit, and then sort of he was sending us tracks to listen to review, and then we'd make comments and it would go back. And so it was a lot more of a backwards and forwards on the mix stage.
Okay.
Was the Fire Cosmic was different in the way that when Paul Wynn took it, he kind of mixed it and then just sent me the finished thing. You know, it was done. You know, there was no sort of adjustments really.
There's a lot to be said today in that approach, mate. I mean, one of my favorite bands is Rival Sons, and
Yeah,
they've spoke quite a bit about how, you know, they like to have a relatively, I think only with the exception of Feral Roots, their last record, where I think they spent a bit more time on it, but as a rule, they've had anywhere between sort of between 4 and sort of 6 weeks period of doing what you like, similar process to yourself of writing and recording everything. And I think that adds to to the sort of magic of an album. I think it can capture the essence
Yeah,
of an artist a lot more. It
yeah,
obviously leaves you a lot more open, and with your soul bearing a bit more, I guess, and a bit more raw to the elements. But I
yeah,
think
yeah.
with this album, I can only talk as a listener, mate, but I think it's captured your live sound a lot more and your energy on your stage a lot more as well. Because I think that's one thing that was sort of missing maybe a little bit from previous.
Yes, yeah, you're exactly right. But and that's again what we were talking about that because I think this album will be a lot easier to replicate live because there's less guitar tracks.
Yeah.
So when you come and see me as a three-piece, it's kind of like not going to have this wall of guitar that's missing, which you need another guitar player or two to kind of like make that
Yeah.
sound like that live. You can't do it with just one guitar.
No.
Um, and that was what again we Dave and I spoke about. It was kind of like getting it so it's more not kind of like a live album, but it's just got those elements that you would have in a live situation. Just guitar, bass, drums, and vocal, and I think I spent a bit more time on the vocal. Not more time, but I was conscious getting the vocals. I wanted to get something to get my sound as best I could, and it's interesting. A lot of people saying about sort of like cigarette smoke, about the cigarette smoking that's coming up in reviews, and the fact of the matter is that I do smoke a lot, so that I don't know whether that helps or whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. But
That's for a lot of people, mate.
yeah, I think that's why Freddie smoked. So he said, but that was probably just his excuse.
Probably. But like you're saying about it, like, oh, excuse me. Obviously, you're talking about Dave there. Obviously, he was on the last album as well, producing this record. He's playing bass on this album as well, isn't he?
Yeah, he's playing
Bass
bass,
and keys and all sorts of
keyboards,
things.
a little bit of banjo on one track,
Oh, nice.
um, some acoustics. Yeah, so a little bit of backing vocals. So he's like really
Yeah,
involved.
lovely.
Really, and it was good working with someone else. Because like even the Fire Cosmic demos, because I demoed those up so they were complete songs, so they sounded like one of my last albums. That they were finished demos in the way that I could have put them out if I wasn't re-recording Fire Cosmic, I would have put it out like that. But I did that by myself, and it just takes a little bit longer. I think working with Dave it was almost a bit like sort of like working in a band situation where you get an instant kind of like bounce back and feedback,
Yeah.
which speeds things up. So it was great working with him.
Do you think it was
Super.
more? You feel like obviously it sounds like it was a bit more of a collaboration on this record than it was Fire Cosmic because you already had those sort of whole pieces, as it were, going into.
Yeah, Fire Cosmic was kind of like revamped. So those songs were, like I said, written, recorded, all the parts, all the guitar parts, all the like bass parts, drum parts, everything in there with the harmonies and the vocal harmonies and everything. And when I gave it to Dave and Darby, they came into the studio. They obviously learnt those songs off the demo, then came in and enhanced what was there. So Darby's playing pretty much not pretty the similar drum parts. So the groove would have been the same, the tempo would have been the same, the accents would have been the same, but then he fleshed it out properly. So it became a real drum part with his personality in it, and he lifted it. He lifted it obviously because he's a phenomenal drummer.
Oh
And
yeah.
the same with Dave, really. Dave obviously learnt the structure, the arrangements of what I was doing, and then kind of like enhanced the bass, but kept it within that. So with this one, I think because obviously he knows what I'm trying to do, and he gets my angle of what I do because he's been involved with it, with the last album, and he's been in it. So when he heard the demos, he kind of he knew what was required, and so I don't know if it was collab, but there was a couple of parts, he sort of like there was like a section of Mercy, sort of like the section that comes under the solo. He sort of like came up with that thing, and so there was like some tiny little bits, but the majority it was more my ideas. But then he was just making producers' suggestions, really. Just like on if there was a guitar part, in what register that was. So if there was like if I was doing something in a higher register, maybe or vice versa, or lower, he would just be like, let's try this inversion of that chord, or, and see how that fits in the mix. And a lot of those were great suggestions because it opened up the mix, and so yeah, he was brilliant. He was brilliant to work with, and I can't say enough good things about the guy, and Joe Webb, like I said, who mixed it. Those guys were brilliant. Good team of people. It's good to sort of know those guys. To be working with just people who really know their stuff and are quick, efficient, and just nice guys, easy to work with.
Yeah.
It's just yeah, it's sort of it's super easy.
It's the fact that I mean, I guess the sort of running thing between both similarity wise for me, although different drummers, obviously Derby to Paul,
Yeah,
both Fire Cosmic and Wing Salvation have just had really big, really solid drum and really good quality drum tracks as well.
yeah,
And for
yeah,
me, that's always really, really important on an album. It's that foundation that everything gets built off.
yeah,
The whole album
yeah,
would sound thin and rubbish if the drum track was weak and rubbish. Um,
yeah,
One of my favorite albums ever would be Queen's Sheer Heart Attack, and I absolutely love the drum tracks on those. It just,
yeah.
sounds immense. And I
Yeah,
think,
we spoke about, because we're both huge Queen fans, and Roger Taylor's drum kit on those early albums, it just sounds phenomenal. It's just big, and the way Roy Thomas Baker would bring those toms forward when it goes around, pans around the sort of like the speakers. I've always loved that, and it's yeah, as players they're both very different. Derby, um, yeah, they're just very sort of different guys. Paul and Derby, Derby. I would say, Derby's playing is more apparent on Fire Cosmic, which is, I like that. I like drummers that I can hear parts, because a lot of the albums I listen to, for just listening pleasure, have great drummers, like Billy Cobham and sort of, Vinnie Colaiuta and all these great players. So I love that, but whereas I think on the new album, Paul's playing is more, I wouldn't say background, because that's the wrong thing, because you can listen into it.
yeah,
It's more accompanying sort of like drumming. It's a slightly different sort of like foot angle in that way, but still phenomenal. And still super solid. And there's great parts in there. Like even the sort of like the tom part I was listening to the other day on Come On. Was just he just put some great stuff in there that you can listen into. It's yeah. Like I said, I'm lucky on these albums to be working with those guys, because those guys are next level players. Darby's like just been out with Devin Townsend. He's that, I'm sure that will obviously sort of massively boost his career, because he'll be on the radar of everyone, all the top
oh god,
muso players. You know what I mean? Because everyone knows Devin, and everyone knows how fantastic he is. The muso sort of guys do.
oh god, yeah, everyone knows that Devon doesn't have a weak link in his band. Let's be
No,
honest.
no. He's no, so it's so great for Derby. He deserves it. He's just brilliant. So yeah, I feel lucky to be working with those guys, because, like you said, your drum foundation is the kind of like the key to it all. Really, if your rhythm section is solid, and Dave,
Right.
Dave is just a monster on bass as well as guitar. The guy's as good a guitar player and keys player as he is a bass player. It's just scary. Um, but not intimidate. You could work with some guitar players like that, and they could be intimidating dicks, but they're just there to get the job done and bring the best out of you and help make it a good, solid project. You know what I mean? So that's I feel lucky to sort of like to be to know those guys, to be in
Yeah.
that sort of circle.
I mean, obviously on the album, like you're saying, you wrote it all within that sort of 4 to 5 week period, including the mixing and everything.
Yeah.
So you wrote it all in the same period. Did you find certain songs came together quicker than others, or did it all feel like you were on like a flow throughout the whole record, or was there songs that stuck a little bit sort of in the writing process?
I'm just thinking now. I'll tell you the ones that came out quickly. Propane. I can't remember what. There was a song I was struggling with. It was a song I was like having a hard time with one day, and I was just like, it was doing my head in. Like, it was frustrating, because I wanted to get whatever this part was nailed. I can't even remember what song it was. So I opened up a new project, because this was just like frying my head, and opened up a new project on Logic and wrote Propane in, I don't know, an hour,
That's,
start to finish. Structured it, got it done, everything, vocal melody. I didn't obviously didn't write the lyrics, but I wrote all. it is a song without the lyrics. I'm singing those lines with a load of nonsense, but it's that song, all the guitar parts, drum parts, bass parts, everything. And I sent it to Dave. He's like, Jesus, where did this one come from? Because this wasn't in our batch of
Yeah,
demos, but it was just like frustration. And so when you hear that song, because it's quite a full on sort of like
yeah, yeah.
intense tune, that came from just not being able to nail this guitar part or something. Like I said, I can't remember what guitar part it was, but it was it was frying my head. Um, what other songs came quick? Like most of the main parts came quick. I think the hardest thing was writing lyrics for 10 songs
Mm.
in a batch because, like I said, with Fire Cosmic written over probably a year, 8 months, or something like, I think Scorpio was kind of like written before even I started writing the Fire Cosmic, so it was like a leftover from
Oh,
something
okay.
else. But I've never had to write 10 lyrics for 10 songs like in a super short space of time. Um, so that was hard, and I had my phone by my bed. I remember that over those weeks, and I'd be going off to sleep, and I'd be just thinking of the songs, and lyrics would come through, and I'd just be like, I have to lean over and sort of like go to my notes on my phone, type it in. I'd lie back down, and it'd whir around in my head again. So it was like massive insomnia, but I'd lean over, write them in. So I thought if I don't get them, I'm not going to remember tomorrow, and I need as
No.
much as I can. So as soon as anything comes,
All
get
right.
it done because
We'll go.
yeah, yeah, and it was like I said, we had to get it done, and there was a time limit on it. Um, but what's weird because like you could think of this two ways, giving yourself a short amount of time to do something, you could think it's like a rush job, and it's like it's not going to be as good. But I think if that's if you like I've spent like since I was 15 sort of making stuff up, writing songs and putting instrumentals and stuff together. So I think if that's what you do anyhow, giving yourself the pressure can be a good thing. And I think for me, like I like to have like deadlines. I like to have that. I work under pressure. I'm usually sort of like person I'll leave it, and I know the deadline's here, and I'll leave it, and then that last little block of time, I'll blast something out. I remember I did that with RHR on that first album. I'd left it, and then did those in a couple of days, like Home and Judgment Day, and they were just all
All right.
back because I had this like date when I had to get the Dropbox over.
All right.
Um, so yeah, working like this, I just thought it brought something else out, and I'm always of the mind of like I'm not like a Nashville writer. Like, there are guys who sort of like there are different types of writers, I think. Um, I just sit there with a guitar, you know, start with just hit a chord and then start playing several chords and just start playing a riff or like a whatever it is, start singing over the top of it and then just sort of like record it and then move to the next section, record that and then build things up like that.
Right.
So I think whatever point of time you squeeze those ideas out of yourself, you'll just have different ones at different points of time.
Yeah.
I don't ever think of that thing of like drying up, like because I think it's almost like you've got your little blocks in your head of like different ideas, and you can just throw those down at different times and just kind of like rooms or something. You can just look at the different pictures and then just make something from those pictures and then do it again, and yeah, so I think that the experiment of doing something in a short space of time, I'm pleased with the way it doesn't feel like they were just songs just like knocked out or anything. It doesn't feel like that.
Doesn't sound like it either, mate. It was only when reading the press release and that got sent across with the for Pete that I realised that it had only been those sort of 4 or 5 weeks because by listening
Yeah,
to it, it doesn't sound the quality certainly of songwriting in there hasn't dipped at all. It sounds, and I think
it's sort of like it could have like but it could have gone like I said, it could have gone one or two ways, like and standing back a few months away from it now,
mm,
the time the scale we put on ourselves, it's crazy, but it's like that's the thing. If you get a good team of people who
yeah,
are like fast and efficient, that's that's the way you can do it.
yeah, man. I mean, also you released like you say, you released Come On, and then you released Gasoline.
Yeah,
You got another single coming up on release day. I mean, is it Sweet Carolina that you're releasing as the single on release day?
should be, yeah, all being well, yeah. It's not completely locked in, but that's the plan. Yeah, yeah, we're going to put that one out. So yeah, be interesting to see what sort of people make of that, because that's a different kind of thing again. Gasoline was different, a little bit, very different to come on.
Mm.
Carolina is more, I wouldn't say it's commercial, but it's kind of like more of a straight sort of
Yeah,
song, more like Stonesy sort of like vibe, that kind of
yeah.
southerny sort of thing going on with it. So again, you're not sure what people make up. Like with Gasoline, I wasn't even sure to put that on the album. That one.
Really?
No. And when I did my original running order, I put that as the last track of the album to kind of hide it away, tuck it away in there, because I think because it's in 7/8, because so
Yeah.
it's not like a normal time signature for a rock tune unless it's prog or like some weird sort of music. I was kind of thinking, is this right? And originally it had like an Eastern sort of section in the solo where
All
with
right.
chorus guitar and stuff, which we chopped out.
Yeah.
Um, and then when sort of like people heard it and there was this discussion about sort of singles, they said that's one, and I was like, right, okay, whatever you think, but I'm happy with it because I like that kind of 7/8 groove, but yeah, it's just you can never tell what people are going to think of things, and how they hear it, because I played it to a few friends and stuff, and no one even sort of clocked about the time signature. They just
Uh,
heard the song. You know what I mean? They didn't think, oh, that's at a weird time. Um, yeah, yeah,
I think it's whatever as from a listener and someone who's also been in bands and played and written. I think when you're in the mix of the writing,
yeah,
you do overanalyze it because you're the one in the thick of it. Whereas someone who's just listening to it casually does just have that thing, does it sound good in my ear? Does it groove
yeah,
right? Does it feel right? Is
yeah,
that riff cool? Does that drum kick, you know, hit me in the
yeah,
chest? Where is the lyrics cool? Whatever
yeah,
that sort of preference might be. So I
yeah,
think
yeah,
all those always overanalyze those side of things rather than even
yeah,
going back to sort of the Queen reference there, Bo Rap wasn't a stereotypical single, but one of the greatest singles of all time. So
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, they were lucky he was friends with Kenny Everett, because that it was Kenny Everett really that broke
Kenny,
that single,
which
and he just
went
played it over and over, isn't he, on his radio show? It's kind of like, which is great, because not many people would have done that, taken that risk of playing a song that long with that sort of progressive. In a
yeah,
non, it's not really prog, is it? Would you call that prog? But it's kind of like definitely a progressive
you've
vibe.
got a
But
progressive feel to it because you've almost got your three sections going all the way through.
yeah,
But yeah, I know what you mean.
but I never put that in the like yes category, like prog, category, which is like, but I like, like we've talked about it before, but I do sort of like sort of progressive stuff. And actually, I was at a festival. This is like one of the coolest things, right? I was talking to Dave probably a few weeks ago. We were talking about my live set for some reason. We were just chatting about sort of like the way I present it, because when I go out and play live, I do a lot of sort of jamming and stuff. In this, I do a lot of solo in it, whether it's a three-piece solo, or sorry, solo performance, or duo. Kind of a lot of the set, or part of the set, is kind of like improvised. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, and I love that. And I think that goes down really well. We were talking about it, and Dave was saying in the future, what are your plans to go out and play these songs exactly the way they are on the album, or is your thing to have the you know Osric Tentacles like sort of solos in there? So we're talking about Osric Tentacles, and then I played it off the Tracks Festival at Donington on Saturday,
Yeah.
and I was playing the last sort of like solo. I think we sort of finished with Voodoo Child. We used to do that literally because it's like a chance for me to solo. You've got like a very small lyric at the front, very small lyric at the back, and then like 7 minutes of guitar solo. And I love that groove to play over. That's why I do it. And so I'm playing the solo, and I look out in the audience, and I normally wear glasses, so everything's a little bit blurry. But I look out in the audience, and I thought that's Ed from Osric Tentacles, the guitar player. And I was like, geez, I'm sure that's him, because I knew they played the night before, but I didn't realize they were still there. So I'm like, cool, that's mad. So get off stage, clear our stuff. And I was with my sort of best friend Alan, and we were sort of like, he was over with me. And I said, look, I'm going to go and try and find him, and just say hi. And, that I've loved his guitar playing. I used to listen to, I think it's Become the Other, which is like an album from about 95. I used to listen to that over and over. So I loved Osric Tentacles. And yeah, I sort of went up, and he was doing the sound. There's sort of the lights for his son's set. And I just went over and said, hi, man, love your stuff, blah, blah, blah. We're really short, sort of like,
Yeah.
hi, bit of a fanboy thing to do, but I just thought it was really cool to go just say, hi. And then he messaged me and he said, sort of like, that's the best guitar playing I've heard for years and stuff like that. It was like a really, really nice message. And I was like, it was just so weird that me and Dave were talking about using Osric Tentacles as a reference to this jam stuff I do.
Yeah.
He's there, and then he sort of messaged about, so that, because that meant the world. Like, you
Yeah.
get good reviews, but it's like getting a message from someone you grew up listening to who liked your lead playing, when they would, you'd probably listen, you'd know every detail of what I was doing because he's a guitar,
Amazing guitarist and would know exactly what you were playing. Yeah.
yeah. So it was just like, geez, that was such a nice, such a buzz. That was a nice, nice thing. But most people would know what Osric Tentacles are. So unless you're into that, kind of like, I don't know if you call them progressive, really, would you? They're kind of, I don't know what you call it. I think it's its own little thing, isn't it? Huh?
Maybe on the fusion more side than proggy. I don't know. It's weird.
Fusion. It's like dance music as well, isn't it? It's got like
Yeah.
a lot of synths and those squelchy kind of like dance synths and stuff mixed with guitar. And when I listened to it in the car today, and just remembering how much I loved that stuff back in the day. Yeah, sorry, a little side note, but it was such a nice little story because those sort of things don't happen very often. It was
No,
just
they
like
don't.
that.
It's often like you say that that you have those sort of moments link up and get
Yeah.
touch.
Yeah, it's no, it's just nice. It's a nice, nice thing. But anyway, yeah, sorry. What
All
was
right,
I
mate. You know me. I'd just like to have a chat, so don't worry about
saying? But yeah, so no, I'm sort of chuffed with the way it's gone, and to see what happens with the next single, and then sort of going out with Dare in October. So that'll be just doing a duo thing with Finn.
that. Okay, cool. Yeah, I was going to ask you if because obviously the Dare show's coming up to here at the Apex in Bury. Uh,
Yeah,
so I was going to ask if that was going to be trio or duo or just you and yourself sort of thing. But
no, it's duo, because that's what they want. Those, when you do an opening slot, most of the time they want just a solo guy because you can get on and get off. But they were willing to sort of like have drums, and to be honest, I play better with the drummer. I think it frees me up.
yeah,
Obviously frees me up more with the bass player because then you've got to hold things down the whole way through.
yeah,
But I think it's a better what's the word, kind of reference point of what I do if you hear the drum beat in it.
yeah. You've got that
Uh,
running all the way through then.
yeah, it kind of makes more sense, and plus it's more power. You can be more full. You can give it more energy. Um, so yeah, so that'd be good. I'm looking forward to that. They're a good bunch of guys. We've already done a couple of dates with them about 2 or 3 months ago.
Okay.
At Chester Live Rooms, we did one. I can't remember what the other one was. Um, yeah, so that we got on really well, and they're good bunch of guys. So it should be sort of like an easy one, an easy sort of tour.
That sounds good, man. I mean, obviously, last time I saw you was at the Apex with Sweet when you.
Yeah. That's almost a year ago. That's crazy. That's almost a year
Oh,
ago.
no, God, I suppose it must be. Yeah.
December last year. So
Oh,
well, not quite a year, but pushing that way.
getting towards it.
That was good. That was, and I think looking back on that run, I really enjoyed that, because there's some really good venues they were playing, and it put me right out of my comfort zone to go out. Like, we had this discussion before, but Robert John the Reg, I went out with a kick drum and did that thing for the first time ever. I'd never been out without a band ever in my life. And with this suite, I dropped the kick drum and just went out with two guitars. And I remember that, like, Birmingham Town Hall, walking up to that first gig. And the thing is, I'd never tried this material out anywhere. I'd never sort of like done a few small gigs with it to see if it worked.
Yeah, just went out for it.
It was just like going out there thinking, shit, this has got to work because I'm in front of this many people. I look like a complete dick if I don't nail it. And it was, after about 4 or 5 gigs, it settled. You know what I mean? It was just like, okay, this is cool. By the end of the run, I felt like I was bulletproof with that set, because I've done that same set for that many shows. It was like, okay, I'm enjoying this now because I feel freedom in it. I know I can take it anywhere I want to go because you haven't got a band thing. You could literally just stop and change wherever you were at any point, and it's not going to derail. So I think it was the Apex, the last show, wasn't it? That was the last show of
Yeah, I
the
think
whole
it was
tour.
the last one of the run. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, I think it was
um,
actually. Yeah.
and that was a great venue. In fact, I remember that gig, and the sound was particularly good on stage, and they got, because generally with those resonator guitars, I don't like much foldback coming back towards me because
Okay.
the sound goes into the body of the guitar, and makes the string start vibrating. So it's like playing
Oh,
itself.
okay,
You know, so
yeah.
you having to try and stop the strings all the time. You know, but that happened. It was just the right volume where it kind of like it wasn't too much, but it was kind of doing that. So then you could do like slow motion. You could hold a note and then do really slow vibrato, like it was slow mo, and really work it and do all these kind of things that you'd never be able to normally do. So no, I enjoyed that, and obviously I sort of saw you briefly.
Yeah.
We sort of chatted a little bit at the
Imagine.
merch table, and but no, it's gonna be good to go back, and obviously it's gonna be good to go back.
It's been going back. Yeah, while we're talking about it, mate, as this is going to be when I've announced it. Thank you very, very much for coming in for Just Push Play next year, mate. I'm so happy to have you on board, mate.
Yeah, it's been a lot. You know, we've been talking about it for a while, but it's
Yeah,
great
mate.
this time locked in.
Yeah, it's really good. I'm really excited to have you back on. I say have you back. I've never had you, but have you back on the Apex. Have you at
Yeah,
Just Push Play? Yeah, man, it's going to be good.
yeah. No, it's gonna be ace. I can't wait. And you know, like I said, I know the venue, I know the sound's cracking in there. So like, you know, I can't wait to get back to such a great venue, really, as well. You know, as well as the event. But I know that it's nice to know when you know the sound's gonna be good as well, because
Oh,
that's what you want. And you know,
that's the thing. Like I've always been really lucky with the Apex in terms of sound. Like as you know from playing there, their team is just insane. They're just so top of their field. I remember
yeah,
first year we did it. They actually I moved it from a social club up to the Apex. It was a big leap of faith, and thankfully to everyone's support, it all worked out. And
yeah,
you know we go in and we got a couple of sound guys, but that particularly was a guy called Fleece. I think he was doing the sound when Sweet played actually. I remember seeing him afterwards, and he's top bloke, but he like a lot of sound engineers, he's freelance, so he can be there or he can be not. But everyone who they've ever had
yeah,
um, at Just Push Play has been brilliant. And yeah, so I was wanting to go introduce myself to Fleece, and obviously I know him quite well now, but this sort of introductory chat. And I sort of went, "Oh, are you okay with everything, mate? And you know, do you need anything from me?" And he went, "No," because I say he does a lot of freelance stuff. He goes, "I've done," and he listed about four of the bands that I had on the bill anyway. And he went, "I've done their sound at Rockstock or at Winter's End or
yeah,
at this festival, that festival." And I was just like, "Okay, so you know the band, you know what they want. That's cool." And I've never seen. I've been obviously the Apex is the local venue to me, so and it took it a while because essentially when it set up, it was more for sort of theatre performances and that kind of thing. Um, but I would say certainly the last 5 6 years they really started. I mean, it's been there for about 10 11 years now, but the last 5 6 years they really started bringing the music side of things a lot
yeah,
more. And you know, I've seen quite a lot of bands over there, and I've never seen a bad show sound wise over there.
yeah.
It's just really good. So no, really lucky with that, and you know, lucky to have the acts on the have on the bill. And so yeah, once again, man, thank you for coming down and
No,
playing.
it's nice. It's nice. It's nice we made it work.
Yeah.
That's all good. All good. And yeah, that'll come around sort of like pretty quick. You know, it seems like a way off now, but that's gonna.
I'll soon come around.
Yeah. No, so it's all good. So it's all good, man.
Cheers, buddy. So obviously, also on that tour you did with Sweet, you mentioned there you were sort of out of your comfort zone, but you made a bit of T-Rex your comfort zone, mate, with that cover of 21st Century Boy. People are loving that.
I forgot I did that. Do you know what? It wasn't part of my set list, and I can't remember which gig it was. And I was in the dressing room, but because I was by myself on that tour, so because of COVID, like there was some issues. They were worried about COVID, and Omicron had just kicked off. We were staying pretty separate, so they were in their dressing rooms. And, you know, sometimes with bands you can like you mix around, you know, you go in there, hang out with people, and there wasn't much of that. So a lot of the dressing room time was just by myself, you know.
Hmm.
And I was sort of like, I was in the dressing room one night, and I was just sort of like, not warming up, but kind of like got the guitar on. I was just sort of like playing around a bit.
Yeah.
And I remember sort of like I just started playing 20th Century because, you know, years ago I remember, you know, I learned that song, you know, and I got the dobro on it, which is tuned to D, and I was just playing it in slide sort of version. I thought, Jesus, I should do that. I should do that instead of what I was doing as my final song, because you know, it's that's people are coming to see this band. They're obviously the sort of like a glam, you know, audience.
Yeah, of course.
But I just thought instead of doing it like a glam version of it, you could do a slide version of it, like more like a sort of cross between blues and, you know, take it somewhere like that.
Really? What?
And it was well, again, there's a few little things that people say that, opinions are opinions, so, you know, they are what they are. But there was well, I think we might have been in Edinburgh. Is it the Queen's Hall in Edinburgh? Is that Edinburgh or Glasgow? I think it's Edinburgh, isn't it?
It's Edinburgh, isn't it?
We're at the Queen's Hall, and I'd done my set, and I was at the merch table, and this older guy came up to the merch table and was chatting, and he used to work with Mark Ireland for about, I don't know, sort of 4 years, like, and I can't remember what capacity was sort of there, but he used to be in the dressing rooms and sort of like was good friends with him. And he said it's the best version of that song, because he said Mark loved blues stuff and would listen to Howlin' Wolf and backstage, and that was his main thing.
Oh,
And it was just nice, that guy saying that again.
yeah.
Opinions are opinions. Like, everyone's got an opinion. There were plenty of people who have gone, that's crap. You know what I mean? So it only means what it means. But it was just nice, a guy saying who worked with Mark, saying that he liked it, and I forgot I did it until he just said then I'd forgotten I'd done that song on that run. But I do remember that when you said, just thinking one night, bollocks, I'll do it.
Yeah. Why not?
And also one thing I did on that tour, I think it was the last run of 3 or 4 dates. I decided to take out some glam rock, just generic glam rock t-shirts,
Oh yeah.
and because we got a t-shirt printing business,
Yeah.
and we got glitter vinyl, and so I just thought, so I took them down to Wales. I took 20 shirts, I think, and it was the first of the run, and took these down, and 20 went in minutes.
Wow.
It was just like gone. I saw the guys on the sweet merch looking at me selling these like just like hot, literally. So I remember ringing Emma on the way back saying, I need more, print me more up. But Stu, I just left it to that last weekend. If I'd have done it at the beginning of the weekend, that would have just been, man, it was just, and I know it's not my own merch, but at the same time, when you're a support band, like, any money that comes in is a good thing.
Yeah.
So that I've missed a trick, sort of not doing that early on the tour, but yeah. And I think that those guys loved it. In fact, all of the suite had one.
Oh,
And
nice.
Andy asked me if I could get a V-neck one for his wife.
Oh,
So I sort of ordered one of those, and I got one of those for him. So it was really cool, and it was good icebreaker. Once I'd done that, I had some good chats with Andy, and I think that was towards the end. I think, so they were so worried about the tour derailing because of COVID. They were sort of like quite cagey about sort of like chatting and stuff. But I think on the last weekend, they realised, right, okay, we've done this, we've got through this tour, and it hasn't sort of stopped. And because I suppose it's a big part of their income for the year. It's that's their main, one of their main things. I know they do a lot of Europe, but one of those tours goes down, that's a massive hole.
it is. I mean, I interviewed Andy just before or just after the tour. No, it was
Yeah.
just before, because it was Andy who actually invited me down, bless him. Because I've interviewed
Right.
him a couple of times. It's always been really cool.
Yeah.
And yeah, I remember him saying that he planned on enjoying the Apex with it being the last run of the tour, because he was, I think, like a lot of acts, understandably, putting on a tour is a huge investment for a band, and if one of you were to catch COVID, then and shit can the tour, that's your worst nightmare. So
Well, it's a lot of people, and a lot of people. It's not just there's a lot of
everyone else is not just the
people
band.
are relying on it. Yeah, yeah. You got
And
sound
the
engineers,
guys.
all those guys are all, that's their income, and so I get it. But yeah, thank God we got other things to worry about these days, not that.
But everything else to worry
Prices.
about,
It's
but
just
not
like energy prices. That's all gone. It's like we thought, right, okay, we're in the clear. Now it's kind of like we have enough electricity to sort of run one of these gigs. You'll have to just have it folk festivals again with just acoustic instruments.
You've done enough acoustic stuff, mate. You'd be all right.
Yeah, well, yeah. At least I got the acoustics there, man. But yeah, it's interesting times, man. It's like just pitfalls galore. What I mean, with external factors. Like I saw something. Ellie Rogers, who runs Comedian Bath, put something up the other day, and she was saying about venue costs. Because
Yeah.
I don't know about your electricity, but ours here, the estimate's like tripled. So you want to know what it is, but it's a lot of money. And if you had a venue and your electric costs get tripled or quadrupled, you're screwed. That venue's screwed. So with COVID, everyone was worried about venue closing. I think if you've got energy costs, unless they do cap it, some sort of like cap, that's more of a worry than anything. Yeah, fingers crossed they sort it, because I think this is it will be sort of like decimating across Europe as well. I mean, venues and small venues, and well, even big ones. God knows.
Well, yeah, this is it. You triple anyone's outgoings.
Yeah, There was a thing I read yesterday about sort of like pubs charging 20 quid a pump, sort of pump, a pint, um, because it was just trying sort of like recoup. And I think the CO2 is going as well, isn't it? Let's go off on a tangent. So for the world's to right, but the CO2, yeah, there's a massive CO2 shortage.
Oh,
But so making beers, the prices increase it anyhow. So, but who knows? No, let's hope AI sorted out.
let's hope so. Someone's got to. So, mate, if anyone's listening, I haven't bought the album yet. They're liking the songs that we've played across the show. What would you say to them?
Yeah, if you're digging it, just go. You can go over to well, it would be released now. So just go over to the website troyredfern.com and you can order them online, and I'll get them over to you. There's sort of prints up there. There's vinyl, CDs. There's all sorts of stuff. You can still get the Fire Cosmic if you've not got that. Oh, these digital downloads. Or and if you don't want to buy anything, just go and stream it or leave a sort of comment on Facebook or any of those things. If you like something, all that stuff helps. So.
Yeah. Speaking back of the album again, great artwork again. I forgot to mention that earlier, but enjoying. Is that another creation of yours, or is that someone else?
Yeah. No, that was just both me and Dave are sort of big, Star Wars, Marvel, comic book geeks. We all like that. We love that stuff. And we're sort of like saturated in that kind of humor. We'll sort of like quote different film sort of things, and we'll get the references, And I was talking about the album artwork before I'd done it, and he said, "Yeah, this album's more Tatooine than it is Jack Kirby." And I was like, yeah, because it's a slightly more earthy sort of vibe, but I didn't know this sort of about it. So I knew what he was talking about. So he was talking about browns, reds, that sandy sort of thing. And I wasn't sure what to do with the cover. I know there was a photo that my daughter took years ago that I really liked the lighting on it. It was kind of like a weird, unusual lighting. And one thought was to try and recreate that in a proper studio shot, because that was kind of like, it's good, but if you blew it up, it would be slightly, it was just like done with my Canon. And so it was one afternoon. The pressure was sort of building because I was thinking, right, okay, the album's nearly done, the music's wrapping, and we got like a cupboard with, we got all our art stuff in, and the kids' art stuff, my art stuff, and I just pulled out a pad that was kind of like a textured, I'm guessing it was like oil pastel paper, and flipped through, and there were different colors, and there was like a sandy one. So I thought, right, cool. And I opened up this box that we got there, which I think was Emma's, and there was some charcoal in there and some pastels. So I just brought that through into this room.
Oh, nice.
And whipped up that photo that my daughter had taken. I thought, right, okay, I'm just going to see if I can do that in charcoal, which I'd never used that. Maybe as a kid, maybe, but I'd never sort of done it. And what's cool about charcoal, and pastel, is that you can kind of manipulate. So you put in layers, and you can sort of build layers, which I don't know if other people do that, but that's what I ended up doing. So I shifted things around, and things weren't quite right, you could go over it and kind of and then I did the back cover art, which, if you just give me a second, I'm just going to grab it because I don't think anyone's seen it.
No, I've not seen the back cover.
So on the back of the vinyl.
Yeah. Oh, cool.
I don't know if you can see it. You see it there? So I sort of took a photo of this sort of paper, because this is kind of like that kind of textured paper that's the same as the front cover. Took a photo of that, sent it to Sam, my graphic designer guy, and he just obviously put the text and stuff down there. And then we've done a T-shirt based off that.
Oh, nice.
That bird there.
On a personal point of view, is that T-shirt going to be on sale at the Dare Show? Yeah,
and that'll be up for there's a Kickstarter campaign, so it's all part of that, and it's on the website. So it was cool, because with Fire Cosmic, I'd done everything myself. I'd done the packaging, and I felt like I needed to do it again, but I didn't want to repeat it. I didn't want to go and do another kind of like comic book thing again. I don't think it would have fitted the vibe of the album.
No, it's a different vibe of album, isn't it? At the end of the day, like, more down to earth, that more gritty.
Yeah, yeah, so I think that, the colors are sort of like are more suited, and I just like, I'm not, I've always liked art, but I don't consider myself, because I don't do it enough. I don't consider myself an artist, but under pressure,
Yeah.
I can do things that I wouldn't normally be able to do. If I just sat here like of an evening,
Mm.
I wouldn't put the pressure on myself to try and really nail something. I would start something and draw it. But when you're thinking, geez, okay, right, there's a time limit here. I've got to get this done because
Yeah.
it's going to go on the program now and people are going to see it. You know what I mean? So again, it's a pressure thing where you've got a time limit and a kind of like the pressure of like trying to nail something. It's like the album, really. Um, I don't consider myself to be a virtuoso musician or anything like that, but I think that in the right circumstances, with the right pressure and the right time limit, I can get stuff out myself that I wouldn't normally be able to get out if I was just sat here. You know what I mean? Just like relaxed and chilled. And it's the same with drawing. I love it. I like the process of doing it, and I'd love to get into. I've got a load of sculpey, which is a sculpting sort of stuff. You
Oh,
probably you've heard that. So I'd love to get into that, but it's just getting some time, to get into it properly. And I've got to get my guitar bracelets done. Guitar string bracelets are part of the Kickstarter campaign.
oh, nice.
So I've got all the stuff here ready to go. I've got the soldering iron and I've got all the bits and the attachments and stuff. So I've got to get that done this week. So it's going into sort of like into the jewelry side of things. So it's just, but it's good fun. All that stuff's good fun, because anything like that is just like, if you're doing something different,
Yeah.
it just makes you it just forces you to sort of like, okay, right, I've got to do this and get it done.
Yeah, man. Dude, it's always an absolute pleasure to chat to you, Troy, mate.
You
So
too, mate.
thanks, dude. So at the beginning of the interview, with it probably being the new single at the time, I'm going to play Sweet Carolina. But what song off the album would you like us to play at the end of the interview?
Oh, let's go with Dark Religion, because that one won't get much air in. So I like that one.
Really like that one. I really. It was like it's got a kind of sea shanty thing going on with that.
It's exactly that, man. It's exactly, and that's why I wanted to try and get that kind of vibe in there, that sort of earthy, sort of dirty, kind of like, yeah, yeah,
I
you
really
nailed it.
like what you went with that one, man. I really do. So yeah, I'm definitely up for playing that. Pleasure as always, dude. Thanks for your time.
Thanks for having me on, man.
No worries. Cheers, dude.